In the last session, we mentioned that we have to know certain ingredients of speaking English in order to be able to effective communicators. And we mentioned that the spoken medium of English language comprises certain segmental features and certain suprasegmental features. And we also learned that the segmental features constitute the vowels and the consonants of English. And we talked about the 20 different vowel phonemes of English. And in this session, we will talk about the consonant phonemes of English. There are 24 consonant phonemes in English, and all these are very important for us, and we should know what these sounds are. Some of us may not be familiar with these. We may be using some other sounds instead of the English sounds. So let's get to know these consonant phonemes of English. They are classified into several groups, and the basic difference is voiced consonants and voiceless consonants. There are certain consonant sounds which are voiceless, and there are certain consonant sounds which are voiced. What is the difference? The difference is voiceless sounds are those sounds in the production of which the vocal cords are wide apart. They do not vibrate. Sounds like p, t, k, s, sh, etc. These are voiceless sounds. On the other hand, we have voiced sounds, and these sounds are produced by the vibration of the vocal cords in the larynx. The vocal cords vibrate, producing a voice, and these are sounds like b, d, g, j, z, etc. So this distinction is necessary for us to maintain, because if you produce a voiceless sound instead of a voiced sound, the meaning can change in the language. For example, instead of saying zip, if you say sip, the meaning changes. The difference between these two words is only in the voicing. When we say zip, the z sound is voiced. When we say sip, the s sound is voiceless. And just by changing the voicelessness to voice or voicing to voicelessness, we can bring about a change in meaning, and that can create confusion and problems for the speakers. And the second distinction that we have to maintain is about the way the air comes out from the mouth in the production of these consonants. There are certain consonants which are produced with a kind of explosion in the mouth. Sounds like p, b, t, d, k, g. When you produce these sounds, it sounds as though there is a kind of explosion in the mouth. So these are called plosive sounds. And the symbols, phonetic symbols used for them are these: p, and this is b, and this is t, and this is d, and this is k, and this is g. As I mentioned, the phonetic symbols are given in the dictionary. Any dictionary gives you these right at the beginning, and in this pronouncing dictionary we find the same symbols used for pronunciation, and these are the plosive sounds, and these symbols represent the plosive sounds of English, and all the 6 plosives are distinctive in meaning. That means if you use one for the other, the meaning changes. For example, instead of saying pet, if you say bet, the meaning changes. Between these two words, the difference has come about just by changing p into b. The p is voiceless, whereas the b is voiced. And similarly, we have another category of sounds which are known as affricates. Affricate sounds are ch and j. Ch is voiceless, j is voiced. And these are also very important for us to note, because we have them in words like church or judge. When we have these, we have ch and j both initially and finally in those words, church and judge. And then we have certain sounds which are known as nasal sounds, the nasal phonemes of English. We have 3 nasals, m, n, and ng. And these phonemes can bring about distinction in meaning. And nasal sounds are those sounds which are produced when the air comes out through the nose instead of coming out through the mouth. For example, when you say m, it is a nasal sound. N, it's a nasal sound. Ng, it's a nasal sound. If you take a triplets like simmer, sinner, and singer, if you take these three words, the difference in meaning between these three words is brought about by changing the nasal. The ma is changed into na, and the na is changed into ng, and that's all that can bring about a change in meaning. Simmer, sinner, and singer. And the symbols, the nasal symbols are m, n, and ng. These are nasal consonant phonemes. These are also very important for us. And added to this, we have another sound which is known as a lateral sound, and that is the symbol for this, letter L. It stands for the sound L, which we have in a word like little or look, leap, etc. So this is a lateral sound which is a voiced sound. And by the way, all the nasal sounds are also voiced in English. We have a group of very difficult sounds, and this group is known as fricative group. In other words, in producing these consonants, we have to produce friction in the air when we utter them in the mouth. For example, if you take the word F-I-V-E, five, and if you listen to these sounds very carefully, you notice that initially we have a f sound, and finally we have a v sound in this word, F-I-V-E. And listen very carefully how this is produced. Initially it is f, f, f. There is friction coming out between the teeth and the lip. F, as in five. And when you come to the final consonant, v, v, there is friction there also. The difference between f and v is in the voicing. Initially, there is no voicing, it is a voiceless sound, and finally, it is a voice sound. And friction is very important in producing these sounds. The phonetic symbols for these are f and v. The f is voiceless and the v is voiced. We have another pair which is a totally alien to Indians and Indian languages, and this is th, theta, and the. Th, this sound is th. It is a dental sound produced at the upper teeth. Th, th. The friction is very important here. And if you voice this sound, you get the. We have these sounds in a word like theory, T-H-E-O-R-Y in English, theory. When we say that, the first sound is th. Or in a word like think, T-H-I-N-K, think. I'll think about it. I thought about it. Thank you very much. When we say thank, we have the same sound. Thank you. Thank you. Authority, myth, and so on. And then if you voice it, you get the sound. The. We have this sound in a word like this, T-H-I-S, this, T-H-A-T, that, and T-H-E-S-E, these, and T-H-O-S-E, those. And also in a word like mother, M-O-T-H-E-R, mother, the, and father, the. That is the sound which we have in English. And these are very alien to Indian languages. We have to take special care about this pair of sounds. And in producing this, we have to make a lot of friction in the airstream. The next pair is, this is S and Z. The first one is a voiceless sound, S, S, and the second one is a voiced sound, Z, S and Z. If you take a word like S-I-Z-E, size, you have the S sound initially and Z sound finally. And we have to make sure that the voicing is important when we produce this word. In the initial position it is voiceless, and in the final position it is voiced. Sin and zip, when you have the word sin, you have it word initially S. In a word like zip or zero or zone or zoo, we have the Z sound, Z. And then next we have another pair, sh and then j. Sh, which is a voiceless sound. If you voice it, you get j. Sh sound, as we have in a word like ship, S-H-I-P, ship. And we have in a word like mesh, M-E-S-H, mesh. And in a word like mission, and so on. And if you voice it, you get j, as you have in a word like leisure, treasure, measure. And in all these words, we have this word j. And don't confuse this word j with z. This is z, whereas this is j, which have to be kept separate. And these should not be confused with this sound, which this is j, which is an affricate. J, z, and j. Similarly, the voiceless counterparts ch, s, and sh. Many speakers get confused with these sounds. We'll look at it a little later, and we'll see how to distinguish these two sounds in different words that we have. And then we have another fricative, which is a glottal fricative produced here at the glottis. This is a voiceless sound. This is that is the sound, which we have in a word like hotel. The initial sound in this word, H-O-T-E-L, is hotel. Or host, H-O-S-T, host. We have this sound. It is a little difficult to articulate it because a lot of breath force is required to produce friction here at the glottis, but we have this sound in many Indian languages and also in English. This is a group of 9 fricative phonemes of English. And we have to be very careful because in many Indian languages we have only 3 fricatives, but English has 9 distinctive fricative phonemes. We have to pay special attention to this to acquire these sounds. Next we have another sound which is known as a R sound. We are familiar with this. This is a frictionless continuant, R, as we have in a word like red or room or hurry, marry, etc. And then we have other sounds which are known as semi-vowels. These are the 2 sounds, the symbols for which are, this is y and this is w. These are known as semi-vowels in the sense that they are half vowels and half consonants, but listed under consonants. Y, this is a voiced sound. W, which is also a voiced sound. Both are voiced semi-vowel sounds in English. All put together, you have 24 consonant phonemes of English. And it is important for us to get all these phonemes, because if we don't have any, or if you substitute one sound for the other, it may create confusion, intelligibility may break down, and your speech becomes defective. One important thing that we have to keep in mind when we produce these consonant sounds is this triplet of voiceless plosives, p, t, and k. When they occur, when these sounds occur, in the initial position of stressed syllables, they are aspirated. It's a very important rule for us to keep in mind. P, T and K, when they occur in the initial positions of stressed syllables in English, they are aspirated. What do we mean by this? Aspirated simply means they are said with a greater breath force. In simple terms, we have in Indian languages what is known as Mahapranas. So, they are produced like Mahapranas. For example, the P is produced like this one, and T is produced like this one, and the K is produced like this. That means, when we come across these sounds, we use the aspirated, these are the aspirated sounds, P, T and K. That means they are said with great breath force. They should be pronounced with a greater breath force in only one situation, not always. And that situation is when these sounds occur in the initial position of stressed syllables. Let's take, for example, we have two words of English, and as you know, in this word there are two P sounds, and in this word also there are two P sounds. But here the stress is on the first syllable in this word, and here the stress is on the second syllable in this word. And the rule is the P sound, like the T and the K, they are aspirated only when they occur in the initial positions of the stress syllable. This is the stress syllable, and this P is in the initial position. So, this is aspirated. Whereas, in this word, this P is not in the stress syllable, whereas this P is in the stress syllable, and therefore, this is aspirated. And therefore, how do we say this? We say paper. Listen, paper. When we say that, this is aspirated P, whereas this is unaspirated P. I don't say paper, but I say paper. Here in this word, the first one is unaspirated, the second one is aspirated because of the positioning of the stresses there, and therefore we say perpetuate. This is important for us to keep in mind, and the research conducted has shown that if we do not aspirate these sounds in the right places, intelligibility may break down. People may not be able to understand you properly, or people may misunderstand you. So, pin, tin, kin, look at the quality of the sounds P, T and K. This is very important for us to keep in mind in English, because the aspiration of these sounds in English is not known to many speakers in English. They just use unaspirated forms, but if you want to make your speech clear and effective, you have to use the aspirated P, T and K sounds in the right position. Same is the case with the T sounds also. For instance, if you have a word like this, T-E-A, tea, initial one is aspirated here. T, not T, but T. See the difference? T, 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 T. Similarly, coffee. When you say coffee, the K is aspirated. Ka. It is not coffee, but coffee. Ka. And that aspiration bring about a lot of difference to your speech. It can give you a polish to your English. And this is what you have to keep in mind when you use these sounds. The other rule that you have to keep in mind about English consonants is not prolonging or geminating these consonant sounds when they come in the middle of a word, even though you see double letters in the spelling. B-U-T-T-E-R. You have two letters of T here in this word, and generally people go by the spelling and they think that because there are two letters here, they have to prolong the consonant. Certainly not in English. In English, when a consonant sound comes in the middle of a word, it will be pronounced as though there is a single T there. So it is pronounced butter. It is not butter. When you say butter, the T is prolonged. We shouldn't do that. It will be pronounced as though there is only single T. So it is butter. Similarly, utter, utter, not utter, but utter. Similarly, missing is missing, not missing, but missing. And so on. It applies to all consonants in English. When they come in the middle of the word, they will be pronounced, although there are two letters in the spelling, these two letters will be pronounced as though there is a single consonant in the word. There is no one-to-one correspondence between spelling and pronunciation in English, and that rule applies not only to the vowels but also to consonants. Take, for example, a word like this, cycle, cycle. Single word. This letter stands for the s sound, and this letter stands for the k sound here, you see, in the same word. So we say cycle. We don't say sisal, nor do we say kaikal. So it is cycle. So this is an important principle we have to keep in mind. Each letter may represent different sounds in pronunciation, and therefore this is another principle for us to keep in mind. Many people get confused about the plural forms, the third person singular verb forms, and the past tense forms, and the possessive forms in English. It is very simple, but people are not aware of the rule. For instance, many plural forms have a letter S at the end. But we should know that this letter S can represent different sounds. The plurality in English, in pronunciation, is brought about in three different ways. For example, sometimes it is s, sometimes it is z, and sometimes it is. We have to keep this in mind. The rule is very simple. The rule is, if the singular form ends with a voiceless sound, the plural also is a voiceless sound, s. For example, if you have a word like cat, C-A-T, cat, this sound, t, is a voiceless sound, and therefore when you make it a plural, it takes a voiceless sound again, s. So it is cats. But if you have voiced sound, as in this case dog, g is a voiced sound, and therefore the plural form takes a z sound, which is plural. Therefore it is dogs. Z. Look at that. It is not s, it is not dogs, but it is dogs. The voicing should be there. And if the singular ends in either a s sound or a z sound or a ch sound or a j sound or a sh sound or a j sound, any of these six sounds, then the plural is. For example, horse, H-O-R-S-E, horse. The singular form ends with a s sound, and therefore the plural form is. So we say horses, not horses. It is not s, but horses is. That is the plural form, horses. There are many horses there. And similarly, if the singular ends with the z sound, for example, in a word like size, what is the size? And if you make it plural, what are the sizes? Sizes is, you see, it's not sizes, sizes. And similarly, ch, match, plural form, matches, is, not matches, matches. Similarly, judge, judges. And similarly, mesh, meshes, dash, dashes. So this is a very simple rule for us to keep in mind, because the way you pronounce the plural form can give the real flavor of English. If you don't use this pattern, there is something odd and your speech becomes a little distorted. Therefore, the rule is very simple. If the singular ends with the voiceless sound, the plural is a s sound. If the singular ends with the voiced sound, the plural is a z sound. If the singular ends with the s or a z or a ch or a j or a sh or a j, then the plural is is. The other important thing for us to note about this rule is the same rule applies when we use third person singular verb forms. Many people get confused about this also. For instance, he asks. Ask is the root. When we say asks, it is s sound. He asks, because k is a voiceless sound, the s also is voiceless. But if the root ends in a voiced sound like this, g, beg, the third person singular form also is voice, and therefore we say begs. He begs for advice. He begs for money. Z, not begs, but begs. Begs for money. And similarly, if the third person singular ends with any of these 6 sounds, then the plural is again. He dashes across the road. He matches the color. It matches the color. He seizes the opportunity, and so on. So the same rule applies here also. So this is an important thing for us to keep in mind. And if you can take care of this important item, it adds polish to your English. It sounds like English. So consonant sounds also are important. They are part of the spoken medium, and we have 24 meaning changing consonant phonemes in English. We have to acquire them. Some of them are very strange. For example, the fricative sounds are very strange, so we have to use these fricative sounds, and then the speech becomes very effective.